problem is and how to solve it. And I'm starting to learn that justice has a lot to do with listening, a lot to do with being present in places where people are hurting, being present with Christ and being Christ to those people, that it's not necessarily about solving problems or great, big, grand acts. That it's not our job to save the world. And so then in June, I found out that the little trip to Pennsylvania that I wrote about in chapter 10 here, during that trip, I apparently made friends with a tick that I didn't know about. And that tick gave me several little gifts, including Lyme disease and a couple of other infections, and thus my body was falling apart. And if there's anything that I've learned, you know, I'm not one of those people who's going to sit here and tell you that having a chronic illness is a blessing. And if I had it all to choose, I would choose exactly what I've had. I wouldn't. I would choose to feel good. But I can see ways that God is working in this. And one of the things that he is doing is stripping me of the notion that I can save the world. Because there are days when I can barely get out of bed. And it has been really important for me, and I think that that's been a recurring theme, because throughout the year in the dress, I continually found myself coming to grips with my own weakness and my own lack, and how little I really could do to change things. And so a lot of these past couple of years have been about learning to rest in not what I do, but in who Christ says I am, and then choosing to still work out of that, because I still don't think that we were meant, and this is a personal example, this is not meant to jab at anybody else, to spend all day staring at Facebook. I've never, ever, ever, ever done that, I promise, but yeah. That there are better ways for me to spend my days, that there are more important things for me to do. But at the same time, I don't do those things because I'm going to save the world. So it's been really interesting kind of how that has coincided with the dress and with the publishing journey. So on that note, I just want to read a little bit from the conclusion, and then that's about all I have. But if you guys have any questions or whatever, then we can do that. So this is day 800 plus in Sighișoara, Romania. Oh, this is important actually to this story, I forgot. So one of the things that I was diagnosed with during the year of the dress is PCOS, which is a hormonal imbalance that causes a lot of really interesting symptoms. But for me, one of the most notable and one of the ones that I struggled with the most was the fact that I had what's called male pattern hair growth on my face. And sometimes it was really noticeable. There was actually an incident on day 100 when someone who I didn't know, who didn't realize that we had mutual friends, posted a photo of me on Facebook making fun of me. So that was a really interesting thing to work through. So, but that's an important piece to this story. Okay, so this is in Sighișoara, Romania. Sometimes God turns our whole world upside down in an instant. Other times he does it slowly. That's how it happened during the year of the dress. There isn't a moment I can point to where everything changed, but by the end of the year, I saw the whole world in a different way. That's also what happened when I moved to Nashville, Tennessee to go to college. 225 days after I took off the dress for the last time, I dragged all my belongings up a narrow stairwell and into my first dorm room. I have chosen to major in social justice at Trevecca Nazarene University. It is an opportunity to study the very things I am so passionate about. At 16, I started the year with a dress, a blog, and a mission: to change the world. That mission and those dreams led me to Trevecca and made me the person I am today. But as I have continued to grow and change, the struggle to establish my identity and what it means to seek justice has grown and changed with me. I now realize that taking a stand for justice doesn't have to involve a big, dramatic gesture intended to change the entire world. Maybe it's something much smaller, righting wrongs one relationship at a time. I've found that discovering who I am has much less to do with impressing people and much more to do with living a life of faithfulness wherever God has called me. In high school, that meant wearing the same dress for a year, but in college, it looks different. The dress project has come full circle this summer after my freshman year, and I find myself standing on the balcony of an Orthodox cathedral in Sighișoara, Romania, with a group of fellow Trevecca students. We're a week into our trip to Eastern Europe. Our purpose for this trip isn't to volunteer, but to learn. We're visiting churches, ministries, villages, and cities, learning about what God is doing among his people in this part of the world. We're discovering what it means to serve a God who has a heart for vulnerable people. One of our professors has challenged us to not simply hear the stories of the people we meet as the stories of those who are different from us. He's asked us to think about what it means for us to be vulnerable. That's what I'm thinking about as I stand in the cathedral with my classmates. The vaulted ceiling soars above us in a wide arc. Sunlight pours in through the windows, illuminating the icons that cover every inch of wall. I lean over the railing, watching the service unfold below us. Rows of wooden chairs crisscross the marble floors in front of a tall lectern. A priest in robes reads scripture. Even though I can't understand what he's saying, his voice fills the space, echoing up into the balcony. I lean against the cathedral wall, close my eyes for a moment, and breathe in the incense. The whispers of my classmates mingle with the rhythmic sounds of the liturgy. I open my eyes again and look across the church to the other balcony and two images of Jesus painted on the ceiling above. In one, Jesus reaches down to a dead girl and takes her by the hand, raising her from her bed. In another, he stretches out his hand and touches the oozing skin of a man with leprosy. I brush a tear from my cheek and feel the soft skin beneath my fingers. Most of the hair covering my face is light and fine, but it isn't hard to remember when it was dark and coarse. Some days it still is. From time to time, I still have to deal with it. The tears fall faster as I think about all the things in my body that are broken and out of balance. It's good to know that Jesus is still in the business of healing the wounded. I've come a long way in understanding how to live in a broken body, but I'm still bitter that I have to deal with it all. I just wish Jesus would take it away, that he would reach out and touch me like he touched the leper and leave me with a body that functions like it's supposed to. If there's one thing that makes me feel vulnerable, this is it. Earlier this week in a different part of Eastern Europe, we spent an afternoon with a few girls who were survivors of trafficking. We visited together, ate pizza, and played games. We also spent some time singing together. As we did, I looked at the faces around me, those of my classmates and of the girls we were visiting, and saw life and beauty. Before we left, they chose one last song. It was a song of blessing and joy and worship, and it was one that we all knew. Languages swirled together as we sang. Many of us heard the words differently that afternoon. How do you worship in the midst of pain? That's a question I still don't know how to answer. The sound of voices raised in song rings through the cathedral. Worship in the midst of pain. That thought brings fresh tears to my eyes as I look one more time at the picture of Jesus raising the girl from the dead. He's always reached out and touched people in their suffering. Perhaps my pain isn't a curse, but a way to begin to understand others. Maybe because of what I've experienced, I can understand in some small way the unspeakable joy of being touched by Jesus, even when he doesn't take the pain away like I often want him to. I'm still on this journey of learning who I am and who God is. I'm still learning what it means to be his. During my freshman year, the pastor of the church I was attending in Nashville said that we all ask ourselves the same two questions. Am I lovable? Am I valuable? He said we get obsessed with the idea of leaving a legacy because we think that's what gives our lives value when, in reality, our legacy is that we are loved by God. Even when we can't see what God is doing, he weaves every moment, including the ugly and painful ones, into something beautiful. This moment in Sigishwara is one of many that God used to remind me that I am loved. There will be many more moments in my journey in which God will remind me once again, and I'll need every one of them. Your moment may take place in a truck stop in Mobile, Alabama, or at a youth camp in San Francisco, California. You may never wear a dress for a year, struggle with body issues, or fly halfway around the world to hear one more time that God is with you in your pain. But you have a powerful legacy. It is the same as mine. God loves you dearly. It may take years to understand it, but it's the only truth that matters. And the craziest part is that when we truly start to believe it, we can begin to find freedom. So that's the conclusion. That's all I have. So I guess if anybody has any questions about like the dress or whatever, you're welcome to ask those. Also, so this is a bit of an odd event because usually they do these author talks and the author has books to sell. My book comes out March 1st. Yep. That's in a month. So we have little cards, I believe. Jamie Kessler has them, and yeah, they have cards over there. So if you're interested, you can grab one of those as a reminder to pre-order. The other thing is, in front of Rebecca on this table, there is a sheet, and it has a space for name and an email. So if you'd like, occasional email reminders, hey, the book is coming out. I promise I won't relentlessly pester you because that's annoying. But if you're interested, you can put your name there, and I will put you on my fancy schmancy email list. But yeah, that's all I have. So, anybody have any questions? Cool.
Well, I got one. You know I'd have one. How do you think the book fits into the whole story? Your initial desire, and now you've got a book, unexpected, and where do you think that's going to go?
I have no idea. I'm just along for the ride at this point. Like, I don't know what's next. Yeah. I'm really, really grateful for the opportunity. It's a weird thing because on the one hand, I don't want to make it all about me. I want people to walk away knowing, A, we can and should be aware of and do something about the things that are happening in our world, that God is indeed making all things new, and He has invited us as the church to be part of that work with Him. But also to walk away knowing that we don't have to save the world. That's not something we can do. That's not something we should aspire to, that the world already has a Savior who is kind of perfect and we're kind of not. And so, yeah, I don't know exactly where it's going to lead, but I hope that that's kind of what people get. So.
Are you still blogging?
I am. Yeah, don't go to onedressoneyear.com because I let that expire because I didn't want to pay for like 67 domain names every year. BethanyWinz.com. Let me clarify. My last name is Winz. It is W-I-N-Z. One time someone asked what my blog was and I said it was BethanyWinz.com, and he didn't know that my last name was Winz, and he thought I was really narcissistic, and it was awkward. So, I do have a pretty great last name, but that's just my first name and my last name smooshed together. And that is not supposed to be a statement about my
And they're on the card.
victoriousness. Yes, my blog address is on the card.
Thank you so much.
About where the organization the money went to and the work that they do.
Okay, so there were 6 different organizations that I specifically asked people to send money to. There were a few people who emailed me and said, hey, I really want to donate to this cool anti-trafficking organization. And so I did add those to my total as well, because I wanted people to have the freedom to donate. There's a lot of organizations doing a lot of really, really good anti-trafficking work, and I didn't want to give everybody a list of 67 because they would never pick. So I picked Compassion International, and one of the leading causes of trafficking is poverty, and so Compassion International provides helps families out of poverty and provides education for kids, and that's really, really important in breaking the cycle kind of at the bottom. The Not For Sale campaign, they do some rescue and rehabilitation work, but they also do a lot as far as economic enterprise goes. They have a lot of kind of business startups that allow people, whether they're coming out of trafficking or are in a community where they might be vulnerable to trafficking, it gives them a good solid job rather than someone saying, hey, come be a waitress 2 countries away, and then they end up not being a waitress. And so, so Not For Sale focuses a little bit more on economic enterprises. The A21 campaign focuses specifically on ending sex trafficking. They work a lot in, they started their work a lot in like Greece and Eastern Europe, but have expanded since then. And I think they do some direct work in the US as well now. And they work toward rescue, rehabilitation, and legal justice for women who have been trafficked. Love 146, they work, I think, mostly with children. And again, they're more focused on sex trafficking. They do work in the Philippines and in a couple of other places, and then I believe they have a fairly new work in the US. That's for Restore International. They have a leadership academy in Uganda. They have a home in Kampala for girls who have been trafficked, and they actually have several more school projects that they've started recently. One in Nepal, they're getting ready to start one in Iraq. And again, education really helps break the cycle of trafficking. The other thing that they're doing is raising up leaders. In Uganda, I think the median age is like 14. It's a very, very young population because of all of the war and things that have been taking place there. And so they're working really hard to raise up leaders who will be wise and who will be informed about these issues, and then who can work within their communities to stop them, which is, I think, one of the most powerful things that we can do. And then
International Justice.
The International Justice Mission, thank you. They work all over the world. They work with all kinds of trafficking. They focus a lot on the legal side, And then on the restoration, the rescue and restoration is very comprehensive, making sure that they walk people through the entire process. Again, working on a very local level with lawyers and with psychologists in the communities where these people are being rescued and where they're being rehabilitated. So yeah, I think that was my 6.
On the page that's on the screen there, if you were to click on the Winz link, we've listed, there are links to all of those that were dedicated, or you dedicated. It's coming. Actually, click on the Winz tab
At the top.
at the top. I'm sorry.
It's the very last one.
Oh,
The
There you
very
go.
last.
And it's on that, yeah. It's on that page.
Yep, there we go. So, if you're interested in any of those, they're all doing
Yeah.
really incredible work. Oh, and Restore International has recently changed their name to Love Does. They
Yeah.
were founded by Bob Goff, who wrote the book Love Does. So, those two are kind of interchangeable. So, anything else?
Thank you, Bethany.
Cool. Thank you all for coming.